Hi, my name is Christine Knapp. I'm a sculptor, and I am having the pleasure of having a sculpting class with 9 wonderful students who are all working on different things. So what I'm going to demonstrate is something that 2 of our students are doing, and that is dogs. And I'm going to demonstrate, more importantly, how to get started on any sculpture, and that is the armature or the framework underneath. We're working in oil-based clay. And with oil-based clay, because it's a soft consistency, if it gets warm, it needs something underneath it to hold it up and to keep its shape in the position that you want. And so that's where the armature comes into play. A lot of people get this mixed up, where they think that you have to fire what you're doing. No, if you fire this in a kiln, it's going to melt into a puddle. This kind of clay you use when you're going to be making a mold of what you do. And the plus of that is that you can make multiples of whatever you create. So it's good for marketing purposes, good for economic purposes. You can get involved with the gallery. And if you have something that's selling well, then you can maybe make multiples of 10 or 12 and just keep casting the same thing over and over again without you having to recreate it. I recommend generally that you pick an odd number of editions. It's kind of traditional. I don't know how that got started, so if I'm a brand new sculptor and I want to break into the business, I might do an edition of, let's say, 9 for a piece, and just test the waters, see how the market is, see how people are interested in it. And then if you have something you think is going to be a really hot seller, bump it up to 15. I wouldn't go above 25. When I was first starting out, I was doing editions of 150. Now, that's pretty crazy, but I didn't know what I was doing, right? And so I found out the hard way that you don't do that. You have a question?
Yes, the question is how, they don't do them all at once, right? So you don't have to come up with the money all at once.
No, you can order one at a time.
But you have to predetermine how many you're going to do with that.
Well, it's just a guess. You say, well, I think maybe I'll sell this 9 times, you know? But you don't have to sell them all.
Okay.
You can only sell one of them and be done. Or you can sell all 9. I was lucky enough to actually sell out of an edition of 250. Wow. But it was, generally speaking, if you're going to do something like that, it's a small piece, and it was a turtle about like this big. And it took several years to do that. But it's okay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're having fun doing this, then why not test the waters that way? But getting back to the point, I'm going to show you how to do an armature construction. And we're going to start off with the dog, where this dog is going to be sitting. This is a dog that I know. Its name is Zoe. And we're picking the sitting pose because we just thought it'd be a little bit more interesting than standing. And a little easier for this particular student because she's being really brave. She's never done this before. And so I thought this would be an easier pose for her. So this is the pose we're going to end up with. And whenever you decide to sculpt something, you want many views. So I'm also getting the back view of this dog as well. That's just for my reference. And when you're doing the armature for it, the most important view is the side view. I don't know if anybody can see that. The side view gives you all of the proportions. The length of the head is giving you a lot of information in terms of how the rest of the body is proportioned. So like if this was, I have this printed out so it's the exact size I want the sculpture to be. That makes it automatically easier. But let's just say you were going to make it bigger or smaller and you didn't have the availability to print this out to the size that you wanted it. You can use calipers and go, if you have a side view like this, and go, all right, so here's the size of the head. Let me put this down to get it real exact. There's a formula to all four-legged animals and two-legged as well. So here's the size of the head. Usually there's the length of the head and the neck, where the neck goes into the shoulders. And usually there's 2 to 2.5 head lengths in the body. So 1, 2.5. Okay? And then you go all over and say, well, where else can I find a head length? Well, nowhere else here, but like from this dog's elbow, is this clear enough? This dog's elbow to like his wrist. This is the dog's elbow, that's the dog's wrist. It's a head length. There's a little bit more than the head in the girth of the body. So it's just good stuff to know. So if you don't have the ability to print out the exact size you want, then you do it that way. In this case, I'm going to know that, I'm making it this exact size here, so I'll make the clay that exact size. Now, here you see lines drawn on here. These lines closely follow the skeleton of the dog. This is a different dog, but the skeleton is the same, and it's the same size as Zoe. Okay? And so these lines mimic the skull, the neck, the vertebral column here, and then the shoulders right here, down into the elbow, the clavicle, and then down into the wrist and the paws. And I will design an armature that's the same as that. And I put these little marks on there to show where the bend points are. And the reason I did that is I'm going to take this from a standing dog to a sitting dog. And so when the dog is sitting, the joints are going to bend, but the bones are not. That's a common mistake I see in a lot of beginning sculptors where they bend the bones in places where bones aren't going to bend. You can only bend them where the joints are. Okay? So, I have already taken some armature wire and I laid it against this. Okay? And you just do it by taking the armature wire and taking a pair of needle nose pliers and you bend the wire at precisely the point you want using the needle nose plier so that when you bend the wire to make a nice sharp crease, you've got to bend it against the pliers themselves. That's another mistake I see a lot of people do. They'll go, oh, okay, I'll just bend it. And then they get this round thing and they don't know where the joint is. You have to make a sharp bend and it has to stay that way. And when you're applying clay onto your armature, you need to keep track of where your joints are. Now some people put like a little matchstick in there, some people just apply the clay so they can see, but it's so important. So once you have the armature wire bent, now because this is a four-legged animal, I would do this pattern twice because of the four legs, right? And then there's another wire here. That's the head, and then it goes down into the tail. I didn't make this tail go down like that because it was just not used for. But then these I have marked on here where the head meets the shoulders up here and where it meets the pelvis here. I have those points marked on my wire so I don't lose track of it. Okay? And then what I'm going to do, let me make sure this, is put this all together with electrical tape. Now just line up all the dots. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle.
Take your clues.
Yeah, yeah.
Legos now.
Yeah, as a sculptor, you're not just an artist. You're an artist and you're a builder. Both. And so you gotta take time to learn your materials, and you gotta think in terms of obviously 3D. In a way, I think sculpture is easier than 2D art because you're not trying to make something three-dimensional into 2 dimensions. So that's my take on it. Some people will disagree on that. So I got all 3 of these wires lined up. I'm going to take some electrical tape and I'm going to put it right in the middle. And I'll show you why I'm putting it in the middle in a minute here. I'm just going to wrap it around, hold it all together. Too much here. So, pretty flat, right? There's no 3D in here. That's why we put the wire or the electrical tape in the middle. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to angle this out. Give this creature some depth. There's the chest. And then we have the pelvis back here. Alright, so starting to be a little bit 3D. It doesn't look anything like a dog, but it looks like a 4-legged something or another. Okay? Yeah. So the next step is to have some sort of a support to put this in. Yeah, actually, I will take your table. Thank you. So this student was nice enough to put some clay here for me, and this will. And you really, when you're working on something like right now, you should always have your creature, your human, your animal anchored to the base, not only with the back iron and can I just show this here? Like this is a back iron on a board, okay? I would have used a back iron for this creature here, this dog here, and if it were a standing dog, I would have put this down a little bit lower, but let's just say, you see these are just screws and you can adjust them up or down. I would have put this maybe with this much clay, maybe an inch of clay in the bottom, anchor the feet in there, and then this would go into the side of the creature right here, and I would attach it with rubber bands and some more wire, and then it would be stable and you could work on it. You don't want, it has to be firmly attached to the base. You don't want it wiggling around on it, okay? That would be a massive headache. So there's that. But in this creature, this dog, I am having this dog sit down so you don't need the back iron, and I'm going to bend it so that it looks like it's sitting down. So I'm going to go look at my pictures. A lot of people, just like I see people when they're in drawing class, they don't look at their subject, and they start drawing what they think they see without looking at the subject. I'm not going to do that even with sculpture. I'm going to look at this and say, what does this look like? How do I need to bend these things? So I'm going to start bending this. Only where the bends are that I already made. That is going to be somewhere like this. Shoulders are going to come down. the tail out to the side. And automatically you have the beginnings of a sitting dog. Now the reason I had this student put the clay here is it's going to give me an anchor to embed the legs into this without any back iron. What do you think? Head turn to the side? Or you want it straight? It's always a little bit more interesting not to have things be entirely stiff and static. It's better to like turn a little bit to the side. So I'm going to just take a liberty of doing that.
And here's the side view.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Bless you. I made the legs on this a little longer so I could embed it in the clay. And just so I'm trusting it stays up. So. Okay, standing dog into sitting dog. No back iron. And because this is going to be pretty solid in here, the clay will help support itself. The tail is out here somewhere. We'll decide where we put that, but later. But if this were a bigger piece, I might put a little bit of foil rolled up in the middle of that. And just for demonstration purposes, this video. If you want to fill an empty spot with foil, you just take a little bit like this, twist it up, and you go around a little bit like this. You're just filling in the mass. And then it could go right in here. You save yourself some clay, and it won't get in the way. And if it does get in the way, as you're modeling the clay on there, you can always just push it in a little bit with your sculpting tools. And that will be the chest cavity. So, any questions about any of this?
You just put that around the wire, or do you take that on?
No, that from this point on, I would take clay and put it over that, and that'll hold it in. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is show you how I apply clay to the armature with a different manner. What you see before you, very familiar to all of you who live in the West, is a pronghorn antelope. People from Wyoming in particular, they funny that I call it a pronghorn antelope because they say they're just antelopes. Well, in the books they call them pronghorn. But this is a project that I'm working on, have been working on a little bit here. And I started off with a sketch. Okay, I studied a lot of different photographs and videos of this animal running, and I wanted to come up with a basic design of how I wanted to indicate animals flowing. And I kind of like this U shape. Underneath every good sculpture is a strong geometric design. And so this is the design I was going after. And you know, I could have had a bunch of legs on the ground. I thought it would be confusing. This way, it's just more of the design. The animals still look like they're running fast. Can you guys see this over here? And so I made this drawing in the exact size that I wanted the sculpture to be. so that I could measure like I showed you before with the calipers, and everything would just start going more smoothly. I also put little armature diagrams in here as well, and I fashioned a armature out of those measurements and put it on a back iron here. I had to put it on a back iron because there's only two things that's holding it to its base, and you notice how I have it anchored to the base, even though nothing else is done really except the armature being attached to this. The feet are already attached. That's very important so it doesn't move. And so what I'm going to do is show how this is going to relate to this one. I've already done this first antelope right here. This one I'm sculpting on a different board just because for demonstration purposes, and because it's a little bit easier to do one all the way around and then take it off of here and put it onto this one. But that's what this is what this one's going to look like. This is slightly different pose. I attached a lot of my wires with rubber bands. This is the same armature that I used for the dog. I have a little piece of electrical tape here in the middle. I pushed out these wires here to give breadth to the chest and to the pelvis area. And then I took a rubber band, cut it in half, so that it was like one wire. And I took that armature and wrapped it onto this. And if you pull it tight and wrap it tight, it's as strong as any tape, in fact, stronger, I think. And so I have rubber bands here, because see there's a wire here, to here, and that's holding it up. Okay? And it's all held by a rubber band. And then when you're done and you want to recycle your clay, you can just cut through the clay, take those rubber bands off, and you have things ready to go for your next sculpture. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay. So when I first start applying the clay,
How do you anchor the ends? You cut the rubber band so it's one.
oh, good question.
How do you anchor the ends?
So put it one end of the rubber band underneath. When you get to the very end, you don't tie it, you just kind of tuck it.
Yeah.
Tuck it underneath.
Okay.
Pull it out and you tuck it underneath and stays. That was a good question, thanks. So I have pre-warmed some of this clay. And I put it into ropes like this because it helps me draw with clay. And that's essentially what you're doing with sculpture, you're drawing with clay. And so I'm going to start off with basic outlines first. And like I said before, I can measure against what I have here on my diagram. Like let's just say, this one here, I know that the withers are going to be that much higher than the shoulders are. So, because it's deceiving. So, I know that I need to go this much higher here. Okay? So, I'm going to put that in there. It's better to me, now everybody has their own methods, but this is a method that I have found works better. It's better to work this way instead of putting blobs of clay on. Because you're drawing. And I know that, well, let me see, this is here to here. Here to here. So this needs to come out that much farther there. And how deep is the chest going to be? I measure it here. And the other nice thing about this kind of clay is, if you make a mistake, no big deal. Take it off and put it back on again the right way. You can add, you can subtract. See, it needs to be just a little bit more than there. And as you apply the clay, the armature itself gets stronger and stronger because this is a high wax content clay. And it holds its shape very nicely. And at this stage, I'm measuring constantly. Well, once you get these initial measurements in, you won't have to measure quite as often. Except if you see something going wrong, and you're like, oh, great. I'm going to do a head here. So I'm measuring this part of the neck. See how much higher does it need to go right here? That much higher. All right. So about one of those things. I know some of you who've been with me before, I keep stressing the fact that in the beginning, you don't put any details in. It's all about the basic shapes. And again, that's another very common mistake that I see, where people want to start putting in the details right away. That's the very last thing that you do. Now I want to measure where the hip bone is. And then that's the back of the rear. The hip bone should be coming out here.
Christine,
Yes.
if you were putting the horns on, do you put a piece of armature for each of the horns, or how do you?
Usually I do.
They don't fall off.
I'm just not showing it right now. But ideally, that's what I would do in my studio. I would take some small wire and just wrap it around the head and have the horns coming up this way.
Okay, so you would have already done that.
I would have done that. Yeah, that's a good question. But do you see how if you have a good armature to start off with, it makes things real easy. And I could put some foil in there, I'm just not going to, for demonstration purposes. And I like the fact that this clay is so sticky. And yes, I'm starting off working just from the side, but I have other views here that also shows what a problem horn looks like from chest view, rear view, the width of the head, and of course always the skeleton. Because especially in a running animal, you want to indicate where the rib cage is. And that would be about right here. And even this is to scale. Like from the shoulder to the rib cage, shoulder to the rib cage. Let's come out a little bit more. So start off always really rough. Pay attention to where your anatomical markings are for the joints. Don't worry about details. That'll come later. And that's what's really nice about working with the sculpting stand too, is I can, you know, keep turning it like this. This play is actually getting a little hard. That's all right. If it's not really warm in your studio, you might have to microwave or either play a couple different times to keep it pliable, or you can put it in a warm, sunny window. A heat box.
Put it in the tray.
Yes.
All over the top of it.
Yes. In my own studio, I have food warmer lamps. And I just put the clay in a tray and put food warmer lamps over it. And that works really well. If I want to do just a quick little warm up, I can use the microwave. It's just like I was saying before, though, microwave, you gotta be careful you don't get burned. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to put a little bit of oil on there. Just to save a little bit of time. Too much. Now there are lots of different clays. There's real soft clay. There's this harder clay that I'm using. One of the students in class has been experimenting with paper clay, which you have to fire, right, in a kiln.
Or you know, it'll dry, hard, but it can be fired to storm with it. Fired with actually stone set.
And with that, you don't have to make a mold. It's a one-of-a-kind piece.
Usually,
Yeah. I mean, you could make a mold.
yes.
Can you mix up the different plates?
Well, you could, but I don't know why you would want to. The reason that you pick the clay that you pick is because you want a certain consistency. So, and if you do decide to mix clays because you don't like the consistency you have, I would keep them all the same color, or else the color variation would be very confusing.
I think also you can put the danger of different, the shrinkage factor of different places you put it. If you try to mix it, one will shrink more than the other,
Maybe, but usually oil-based clay, I haven't had much.
probably would.
Yeah, oil-based clay, it pretty much stays like it is for years. I have some oil-based clay that I've been reusing for maybe 8 years or so, and it's still, you know,
working fine.
Now, after about, I have a piece that my son made in high school, an oil-based spray, and that's 20 years ago now, and that's starting to crack a little. So, and it gets leathery. Now, I'm doing what I told you not to do. I'm not looking at my subject. I'm going to make sure that I have that hip bone coming out. And I'm working primarily just on this one side, just so you guys can see how relatively fast things can come together. Now, I could have put some wires out where the ears are here, attached it to the head and have wires come out this way, but I decided not to do that because this is, like I said, a harder clay, and it'll hold its shape pretty well. And you know, everybody has their own style. So, I mean, there are some people, and I know you guys have seen sculptures like this, where you'll just see them leave it like this, okay? It just depends on what you want your style to be. And as long as you have a good sense of anatomy and structure underneath it, it still reads as a four-legged animal. Now, you can't tell it's a pronghorn right now. I don't have it. You know, it's some sort of a running four-legged animal, and that's about it. Has anybody ever eaten pronghorn?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
It's good.
Is that veal?
It tastes like veal.
Some people say it depends on how, what they've been eating, the kind of stage they've been eating. I see, what is the other experiences people have had?
I've had it before in a French restaurant and it was excellent. It was one of the best meals I ever had.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's really good.
But, yeah, it's mostly farm raised, but, you know, the wild ones are no gamey, like, just like deer.
I haven't found that. I haven't found it. Okay. I never got much to the deer out where I work, you know, it wasn't. But sometimes people need the age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes people try to.
Yeah, I've never had it myself, but I'm very curious to try it. We're so lucky to be able to have a relatively close by.
They have a nature's eye off in the antelope in Miami, and they're like 80% or something.
I heard that.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Put back on the licenses.
Was it from a disease or?
No, bad wind. Bad wind. A lot of snow. Snow, some places was forced to feed and they couldn't get the food. Very horrible stories about it.
So every time you put a piece of clay on, it's with purpose. You don't put it on there and feel like, well, you know, I'll fix that later. Yes, you do that too, but it's all, you see how right now it's kind of working a little bit like that. And my intention is not to finish this, it's just to give all of you an idea of how to get started. Because sometimes it's mystifying. And this is where standing is very helpful too, so I can keep moving around this. And seeing all the different angles. Even the top angle I want to see. I don't have a picture of the top view of an animal, but I am familiar with it. Very similar to over here.
This thing you guys show us how you put the two of them together.
Well, I could.
That's counting ahead.
Maybe by the end of class. How's that? I'll show you that because I would just simply take this off of this armature here, put these wires, and embed the legs of this into here, and then the antelopes are both touching on the haunches, and so they would be able to have that. But I'll show you that in the class, sure. You know, every sculpture is different. You have different challenges, different problems to solve, and you just have to be a little creative. And you know, it could be that you guys might come up with a more creative way than I come up with. Because it's like anything else. There's many different ways to reach the same solution. This way just happens to work for me. And for other people that are, you know, sculpting like little years. We'll get a few quick measurements. And here. Not that, okay. Okay, now this is jumping the gun a bit, but I'm just going to show you just for demo purposes. Once you got the general shape, the general positioning, and all that, you can go in. I think you all have a serrated boot tool. They're like red handles with a loop on either end, and you have to put the little loops in there. I didn't really show you how to do that yet, but I'm going to use one of mine here that I already put together. This is a bigger serrated boot tool. You can get something similar to this here at this facility, or you can order something similar online. So I like to use the serrations. I like to use this one when I'm starting to lay in muscles. And I have this one diagram here that shows all the musculature of the pronghorn. I'm not sure the technology, what they use to get this, but they actually scan the animal. I think it's like a 3D printer, I think. And they scan the animal, and it shows all the muscles, and it helps you see it so much better. You can get these online, and you can just look the image online and get it for free. And so just start paying attention to how the muscles are. It's kind of hard to work from the angles I'm working from because I don't want to get in front of the camera or in front of you guys. So I'm kind of second guessing myself. little boxwood tools are very, very helpful. These work like a tiny little fingernail. With just the tools that I've given you, you could do a whole sculpture this size, no problem. Or if you want to, you know, get a little bit more into different kinds of tools, you can do that too. I use my fingernails a lot. And I keep them short because if they're too long, it'll get in the way. My granddaughter's always getting on my case. She says I need a manicure all the time. It would just get in the way.
Christine, could you remind me how you got the belly around, because you don't have those little wires there, and it seems like the belly's kind of, you know, takes up a lot of volume. How you did that?
I put a little piece of foil.
So just pretty much use the foil. So there we go, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that line that's along the bottom of the abdomen?
Yes.
That piece of clay right there.
Yes.
What's it attached to?
Nothing. Well, it's just sticky clay, right?
Right, so you're just sticking it against
Yeah,
the foil.
yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking, I looked at those little lines of wire and thinking that maybe the lot could be desired in the skeleton.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
No, it's not a problem. I mean, you pay attention, which is why I have skeletons always.
Right.
So I know where the rib cage is going to be.
And so you just stuff it with
But
some
I know
foil.
that, yeah, I just stuff it with a little bit of foil, not much,
Yeah,
okay?
okay, that's just,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember quite where.
No, good. Yeah, you know, all good questions. So,
It was good to see the other side.
yeah,
Yeah, that was good, to see that before and after.
yeah. So, you would use these very same techniques for human beings, or a portrait bust is a little bit of a different animal because you don't have to worry about all these little wires. You have to worry more about proportions. But still, the application of the clay is the same. You're going to want to put every piece of clay on, and then it brings you a step closer to your image that you're creating. And I like doing it like this, because then it's like pencil. And as we progress in this week, if I get a chance to get more done on this, I'll show you some more tips on finishing up things. But for right now, I mean, you know, I'm just now starting to get involved with the muscles and keep referring back to my references. But because I've got this firmly anchored on all sides, it's making it easier to work with. So at this point, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to leave it here for for your reference. And I'm going to give all of you some more individualized attention. Unless you have any questions right now. Okay. Okay, great. So,
I'm already amazed.
well, no need to be amazed. So make your rolls of clay.